Hello, everybody. Welcome into GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. Today is Friday, February 21st. I hope everybody is having a great day so far. We are having a massive show today to close out the week. Some updates from the coaching carousel as the last head coach finally finds his running mate, his defensive coordinator, the Saints. We'll talk about what happened last night in the Four Nations final that went to overtime, as well as breaking down what a perfect offseason might look like for the Saints, what the season might hold for the Los Angeles Angels, and some retirement news from around the NFL. But before we get into any of that, remember, if you would like to be an even bigger part of the show than you already are, all you need to do is go to gsmcpodcast.net. Or if you're on YouTube, you can use that super chat feature. If you do either of those two things, a message should pop up on the bottom of the screen for you, me, and everybody else around the world to see. If you do have a burning question about sports, anything at all that you would like to ask, go ahead and throw that in the comments. Throw it in the chat. I will get to it as soon as I possibly can. I appreciate everybody so much for sticking around, talking some sports with me here on a beautiful Friday, February 21st. But like I was saying, we are going to get into the first topic of our show here today, that having to do with the Four Nations face-off. This was one of the more anticipated games in the recent, almost 40 years, for the U.S. hockey and for the hockey program of Canada. One of the biggest games since the 70s and 80s when these two programs were taking on the Russians, the Soviets, back in 1972 for the Canadians and 1980 for the U.S. Obviously, as a United States citizen, I was rooting for the U.S. in this one, but we got an amazing hockey game either way. Just looking at the numbers, this had 10.4 million viewers. That is near the level of the Final Four for the NCAA men's tournament last season. That is huge. That is the most viewers an NHL game has ever had in its history. A lot of eyes on a game that delivered in every way you possibly could. Physicality was there. Amazing saves by goaltenders were there. Amazing plays by the best players on earth were there. And an amazing game, most importantly, was there as well. We'll talk about how we got there, how we got to the game winner by Connor McDavid. But before we do, we're gonna run through some of the storylines of this game. One of the big storylines for the U.S. was the fact that Matthew Tkachuk, one of the first line forwards for the U.S., came in playing injured. He not only did not play in the third period, but missed most of the second period with what they're calling a groin injury. He only managed to play 6 minutes and 23 seconds in the game, one shot on goal, and that was a huge loss for a U.S. team that still, without him, was really, really close. Now, this is not the set roster for the 2026 Winter Olympics, which will be taking place next year. It's a little preview, a little taste of what we could get there, but this, again, was the first time that NHL players got to play in an international tournament in 10 years. That is a really long time. Not since 2014 at the Sochi Winter Olympics were the NHL players given a break to go play in international tournaments, which is why this one was held, to give a taste of that, and it came out with everything. Now getting to the game. It started off a little bit slow. Canada was dominating in that first period, at least the first half of it. And Nathan MacKinnon, the star forward, the reigning MVP in the NHL, opened the scoring for Canada for the game with a first period goal that just made it through a lot of traffic, was able to get just up and over the glove of Connor Hellebuck, giving Canada the early lead 1-0 in this one. But it didn't stay like that for much longer. Late in the first period, the other Tkachuk brother, Brady Tkachuk, tied the game after a tip-in goal, a puck that was missed attempt on net by Austin Matthews that squirted in front of the goal, leaving Brady Tkachuk open in the slot. He found it, was able to slide it up and over the diving left leg of Jordan Binnington to tie the game at 1 after 1. Now, this is the exact same way that the first matchup of these two went. It ended up 3-1 in the US's favor with a late game empty net goal by the US, and it looked like it was going the same way in this one. As in the second period, Jake Sanderson, a defenseman from the Ottawa Senators. In fact, both goal scorers for the US tonight were from the Ottawa Senators, which is a little bit ironic there. Two U.S. goal scorers playing up in the capital of Canada in Ottawa. It's just a little fun fact over there. But Jake Sanderson gave the U.S. their first and only lead of the night with a nice little drive to the paint. Was able to pick up a puck after it just went right across the middle of the slot, right onto his stick, and he was able to pocket it home, giving them the only lead that they would have. In the second period, Jake Sanderson, a guy that was in there only because other players were injured. Jake Sanderson, who kind of was that last man in, last man up, only scored 5 goals all season for the Ottawa Senators so far, not really known for his goal-scoring prowess, was the only defender in the entire tournament for the U.S. to score a goal, gave them what could have been a huge game-winning goal. Unfortunately, just a couple of minutes later, Sam Bennett comes in off of a weird line change by Canada where the puck was kind of blocked. A pass down the right side boards to JT Miller was blocked, and Sam Bennett picked it up after coming into the game. A almost 6-man on the ice penalty, a little bit ticky-tacky there, but probably in a game as big as this one was not worth calling. Sam Bennett comes in, is able to pick it up and pocket it into the net right past Connor Hellebuck to tie the game at 2 in the second period. That's where we went to break. 2-2 in the second period. The third period was filled with chances for both sides. Canada started off strong. They were out there dominating. The U.S. answered a little bit, but it didn't matter. Hellebuck made save after save after save in that third period. Binnington came up with a couple of big ones, and at the end of the day, it went 2-2 into overtime. And this overtime game was exactly what you wanted to be. Full of intensity, full of hard hits, full of guys trying as hard as possible. And it looked like the U.S. was going to be able to end this game with a winner, as Austin Matthews, one of the best goal scorers in the game currently, arguably one of the best pure goal scorers of all time. He's one of just 9 players in the history of the NHL with multiple 60-goal seasons in his career, and he's not even halfway done with it yet. Austin Matthews is going to be a first-ballot Hall of Famer, and Jordan Binnington made not 1, not 2, but 3 humongous saves on Austin Matthews late into this game. There was one chance where he was wide open on the side of the net. Binnington with a sliding leg save over the top. He takes another one away, flashing the leather. He played incredible in that overtime period. Jordan Binnington, who is known in this tournament as one of the weaker links, one of the more head-scratching decisions by that Canadian team to start him in net, made up for everyone, shut up all of his haters, made everybody eat their words, including me. I thought he was going to be the reason they lost this game. I thought Jordan Binnington wouldn't be able to make that save when it mattered, but he did it 3 separate times. And that is why he is out there. When the moment is the biggest, he steps up and he gets it done. We saw it in 2019. He stepped up when St. Louis Blues were the worst team in the NHL. And he led them to a Stanley Cup championship that season. He made save after save in Game 7 in TD Garden in Boston, the very same building where he made save after save in this game to send Canada home a champion. An icing call, a little bit close icing call. It was a race down the ice, almost had it canceled. Right before a face-off, won by Canada, some offensive setup. Austin Matthews overplays the puck just a little bit, and it leaves Connor McDavid all alone in the slot. A player, not a single player, Canadian or U.S., was within 3 feet of him on either side. You can't leave the best player in hockey wide open like that at any point, or you're going to get burned. And despite having arguably the best goaltender in hockey, despite having one of the best goaltenders, arguably the best goaltender in hockey, in Connor Hellebuck in net. When you have best on best in that situation, McDavid, who had struggled a little bit with keeping the puck on his stick, had turned the puck over a little bit too much throughout that game, delivered when it mattered the most, snuck the game winner right past Connor Hellebuck as he tried his best to make that save, and the Canadian team takes home one of the biggest games in their hockey team's history. This one was an amazing game. It showcased hockey to the world. It was the perfect game to do that, and it's really good for the growth of the sport, right? This is something that everyone in America had their eyes on. Again, 10.4 million viewers were watching this game according to the Nielsen ratings. That doesn't even count all the people that I'm sure were streaming it on a smart TV, were streaming it through one of those sports streaming sites. This is a massive win, not just for Canada, but for the sport of hockey as a whole. Now we're going to have more hype for the rest of this season, as the Stanley Cup playoffs are going to continue to be this kind of atmosphere. And as more people pay attention to the game of hockey, we'll see it start to grow from the fourth biggest sport in America to potentially maybe down the line, with how much this tournament did, growing even further, even faster. That was a huge game for Canada, for the U.S., and most importantly, for the sport of hockey. But let me know what you thought of that game. I'd love to hear your thoughts. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we turn our attention over to football. The New Orleans Saints have hired a new defensive coordinator, and the Jacksonville Jaguars have named their next general manager. We're going to talk about both of those hires, who they are, whether they were good hires or not, coming up next here on GSMC's Down by Contact Sports Podcast.